Did everybody get the notification?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I shared my screen. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. So calling to order the first Sustainability Committee for the town of North Stonington, June 22nd, 2021. And I will go around and do a roll call. So I'm Alexis Kahn.
Pat Turner.
John Lindsay.
There we go. Craig Fasula.
Do we need Mike to say anything or? Oh,
No, I mean, I'm here, but so just for the record, the first selectman is a ex officio member of all boards and commissions in town, but I don't have any voting rights. But
No.
just that's just for you to know. But I am here.
But you're present. You're still listed as present.
I am present.
Yes.
Okay. And Tula Bellestrassi is on the committee, but is not present for this meeting. Okay. So the next item, we just wanted to chat about the meeting schedule. So in terms of frequency that we should hold this, timing, in terms of what time of day works best for everybody and location, vis-a-vis whether we want to always hold it virtually on a Zoom setting that might be better for John's schedule, for example, or whether we want to do some sort of hybrid of some meetings are in person, maybe with hybrid participation, via Zoom with a Zoom option as well. The one thing I just wanted to first mention in this, in terms of if we're considering the Sustainability Committee within the context of the Sustainable CT program, the deadline for application is August 24th. So one thing from a meeting schedule frequency standpoint that I just thought I would bring to our collective discussion is if we want to maybe set a frequency that's a little bit more often during these next few months when there's an application deadline, and then to have it be a little bit different frequency post August 24th. That's just wanted to throw that out there since like the summer period is kind of the critical time for at least meeting the sustainable CT objective. I'm sorry.
It's fine with
Any
me.
thoughts on that?
I don't mind meeting once a week.
I don't know if we need to do maybe. I don't know if we need to do once a week, maybe once every other week for the next, until August 24th. I don't know what you think about that. And then maybe once we could see how it goes, but maybe once a month thereafter, or, I'm happy to do once a week, but I just, mindful of everybody else's schedules and time.
That sounds reasonable, assuming we can get everything done between now and then. I have
That's
no idea
reasonable.
what we have to do, so.
That's reasonable so long as you've got quorums. Most of August, I might be in Maine, and connectivity is very, very problematic along the coast. I don't know when I'm available, when I'm not available, mostly not available.
Okay. So maybe we'll try for the next few every other week, and if you can't make it, you can't make it, that's fine. And just see how that goes in terms of progress on the application. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
In terms of considering, John, you're starting to travel again. Pat, you'll be in Maine. Do we want probably be in Maine? Do we want to do Zoom until further notice, or do you want to try to pick, let's say 1 or 2 dates over the summer that we do meet in person, just so we can all see each other face to face? It's up to you.
What's considered a viable quorum for the group, given the number of people?
3, is that correct, Mike? I think he told me 3.
Yeah, that's half.
That's correct.
Yep.
Don't worry about my schedule. I typically work fairly late into the evening, so fitting a meeting in wherever I am is very easy for me to do. So everybody else work around your schedules, and I can accommodate what's necessary.
Okay. Do we like this time, the 7 p.m. time for everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, on Tuesdays, this is good for me, and I'm closer to town on Tuesdays anyway, so I could meet in person at 7-ish on a Tuesday, whereas it's harder on some of the other days.
Okay. Tuesdays, as a general rule, is that a good day of the week for everyone too, besides Craig?
Yes.
Okay. And Mike, does that interfere too much with your Board of Selectmen meeting?
So no, if you guys do the first and third Tuesday, the Board of Selectmen generally meets on the second and fourth, although we do sometimes have special meetings, but we also meet at 6. So usually if we are having a special meeting, most of the time it doesn't take that long. So like if you just do the other Tuesdays that we're not meeting, then I should be able to attend most of your meetings.
Okay. Do we vote on this type of, like the scheduling, or is that not something we need to vote on?
So you can do a couple of things. You don't have to. What'll happen is with a committee towards the end of the year, like around November, you submit a meeting schedule for the following year, and that would be your regular meeting schedule. And if you have a regular meeting schedule that's filed with the town clerk, when you have those meetings, you have the ability to add agenda items. If you don't have a regular meeting schedule with the town clerk filed, then what happens is all of your meetings are they're called special meetings. It doesn't matter. The only thing is you can't add agenda items on a special meeting. So whatever you file your agenda, it has to follow that agenda. You can't say, okay, I want to add something to the agenda. So if you do decide to put down on paper a meeting schedule, you could file that with the town clerk, and that would be your meeting schedule. Or just agree to it and just make it special meetings, and then next year you could file a meeting schedule. It's up to you guys what you want.
I feel like because we are just starting off, and also because it's going to be a little bit different, I think, a structure for Sustainable CT rather than the rest of the year, I would think that maybe it makes sense to just have special meetings at least until like the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if Tula just goes through the rigmarole with a town clerk or talks to somebody on another commission, has done it as far as how to file these things. I've done it years ago, and I'm glad I'm not doing it now. She can get it figured out. If you just talk to the town clerk or a secretary in another commission and get it figured out.
Okay, so first and third Tuesdays of the month are best at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And we'll do at least a virtual option, and maybe we could try, sometime in July again, John, if you're traveling, we could just have you dial in, but then see if we could meet face to face, but maybe we could talk about that at a later date if that works.
Yep.
Okay, great. Anything else on the kind of scheduling side that anybody wants to add?
Should we just clarify the dates of those meetings quickly?
Sure. So the first, sorry, I'm just going to look at my calendar. First Tuesday of the month, I believe, would be Tuesday the 6th. Is that correct? I believe.
Yeah.
And then it would be the 20th.
Yep. Okay.
And then the following month would be the 3rd of August.
I can probably do that.
And the 17th of August.
So that leaves us 4 meetings before the application's due. Is that feasible? Everything done?
Yeah, we might get more.
Yeah, maybe in August, we could meet, maybe we could meet the Tuesday, the 10th as well.
Mhm.
And maybe, yeah, so it would be 5 meetings. Mike, from last year, do you think that sounds reasonable? So we'll meet every week in August leading up to the 24th deadline? Or do you think we need more than the 5?
Why don't you settle on that for now, and then I
Okay.
think as you start to break into the work,
Right.
it's many hands hopefully make lighter work, and maybe that will be just fine.
Mhm.
Okay. And does it work for everybody if I send out calendar invites? I'll do that tonight for those agreed upon times, just so it's in your calendars.
Sure.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else on that, do you want to move to election of officers? So we already have our secretary. How do we nominate Tula, and then anybody second it? I move to nominate Tula Belstrassi as secretary.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So you just ask if there's any discussion on it.
Any discussion on it? I'm sorry.
And then if there's no discussion, all you do is ask, all those in favor, and then you just take a head count.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So all 4 of us are in favor. Any, no, well, it's sort of assumed, or do I have to say any
Nope.
against? Okay.
Yeah, if you got all 4, then I always say all opposed, and there's no one opposed usually, but
Okay.
and then
All opposed?
the other thing, if someone were to abstain, like because they just didn't want to vote on something, that person's name needs to be recorded in the minutes. Tula will know that.
Okay.
We'll remind her, but
Okay.
abstentions need to be recorded.
Okay. All those against? Okay, I think it's clear that Tua is our secretary. And sorry, other guidance question. How many members how many officers are required?
Chamber of Vice.
You'd only need, bare minimum, you should have a chair and a secretary. You could have a vice chair as well.
Okay.
But definitely a chair and a secretary.
Okay.
I nominate Alexa as chair.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
Yay.
Despite my clearly faltering on this whole proceedings, I'll get it, I promise. First go with this. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, we have our chair. Would anybody like to be vice chair? Between,
No, thank you.
no, thank you. Okay, I mean, it's a small committee, so I feel like, sorry, I didn't want to prevent anybody from volunteering. Okay, well, I feel like we're a small committee. If it's okay with just a chair and a secretary, I'm fine with that. Okay. So we have our election of officers. Now moving on to more of the goals of the committee. So I think what I sort of thought would be nice to discuss at this point is, obviously we have, I would say this is a little bit of an interesting committee, and that we have something that is a clear deliverable, a clear objective being, the sustainable CT certification program. So there's a deadline associated with that. We have action plans. That's a very clear cut program that we can follow in terms of the kind of mission of the committee. But as we've discussed in prior, kind of pre-committee discussions, there's a bigger purpose of this committee being, just kind of generally speaking, instead of checking the boxes to get a certification, to really have this be something that is embodied in sort of the lifeblood of the town. So I think, I just wanted to kind of give us the opportunity to chat about year round what we want to kind of get out of this, and obviously in broad strokes, because we can't go into too much detail just tonight, but I think it's like the near term objective of August 24th filing our certification and going for, I think this is subject to discussion as well, but we've had bronze pretty consistently. I think we have it, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but for another 2 years, because they're good for 3 years. So at this point, I think we're really going to try to go for silver. And I think that's kind of the rationale for putting this together and having the manpower behind it. So certainly seeing if you're all in agreement with that, but then just kind of more broadly, what are we looking to achieve over the next year instead of just, between now and August 24th. So I'll put that out if you have any ideas of, what you're wanting us to kind of, whether there's a certain area of sustainability that you want, that you'd like this to focus on. Pat, I know I did add in as an agenda item, pollinator pathways. So I know things of that nature to be embedded in sort of the objective of this committee. But if you have other things that you want to kind of make sure that we incorporate into the overall mission of the committee, so we have a bigger kind of like what happens after August 24th, that we have something bigger to attain over the course of the year and kind of keep the inspiration going after that certification process.
I'd say that I'm coming in still sort of naive to the logistics of this, and admittedly, when we did that pre-committee meeting, I was in really bad shape. So I'm not anymore, and that's great. And look forward to showing up a little more. So my thought is that as we get into the sustainable CT application, it's just going to bring stuff up, and it's going to bring up different aspects of what that means. And then I imagine we'll each of us be maybe a little more interested in this or that and figure out how we can take some of those pieces and run with them. So I'm sort of assuming that the process itself is going to bring up a lot of what is even more possible and hopeful in the future. That's my take.
Yeah, that's definitely true. As you get in the weeds, I think then there might be something like, for example, from my experience the past couple of years, and I think it was a matter of, manpower and everything, but there'd be something that we would say, oh gosh, I would love to do more of that. Once you're uncovering what we've done so far, or what we could, because there's a lot of action items that you realize, oh, we could do this to meet this deliverable. And maybe it was, too hard during COVID to orchestrate it or something like that. But I think you end up finding ways that you're like, oh, I want to kind of delve into this deeper because it's something that would qualify as points for the Sustainable CT program. But again, it's a matter of, how much can we do when it's out without being a dedicated committee.
Mhm.
I actually logged onto the site. There was a lot of interesting information associated with what towns and communities did to obtain the bronze and silver rating. So there's an opportunity to kind of mine that data and see if there's solutions that may benefit the town of North Stonington and help us generate ideas that would be of value to the community. There's quite a bit in there.
That's a really, really, really good point because they do share what other towns do to get credit for different areas. Does everybody have access to the site?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I've been there.
Without getting too horribly techy and deviating from the topic at hand, is there any central location where the town stores minutes of meetings, videos, documents associated that we can all kind of reference as a central location to be able to gather data, upload it and save it for other committee members to review or town members to review if they chose to?
So as it relates to this, what we did in the past for this anyway, was we ended up with a fellow that supported us from the Connecticut Council of Governments. And they would, I think over the last couple of times, Alexis, they created we had like a Google Drive where we were just dropping documents in there. So that's where we were capturing all the documents as we were striving for our certification. As far as documents the town has that would be necessary, those are all over the place. We've got all sorts of different databases where we have information. So it's probably two separate questions, but I know that the fellows they are bringing the fellows back to the Council of Governments. So that's something you probably should talk about, Alexis, and we should probably reach out if that's something we're gonna, try to move towards.
So they have made an announcement that they will be providing towns that wish to use a fellow with one.
Yeah, they mentioned it at the last Council of Governments meeting, which was I want to say last Wednesday. They mentioned it.
Okay.
I don't know when they're coming in, but I think it's like soon, maybe already.
Is it just a matter of reaching out to I think it was Jessica, right? And requesting one, or what's the process to actually officially request a fellow?
I think, yeah, reach out to Jessica and ask her what the process is. I don't recall what, okay. In the past, they had been stationed at the Norwich, Connecticut Council of Governments office. I don't know if they're working remotely. I don't really know if anything's changed with that, but yeah.
Okay, I'll reach out to her just for the benefit of the group. They were really almost like our organizers. So to John's point, we weren't really having to upload very much of the actual, because you've been in the portal for Sustainable CT. So you see how it works in terms of you're demonstrating proof of, or I would say requesting approval or points for that individual action item. And we were more supplying all of the information that we thought would adhere or be representative of the work that we've done to qualify for that action item. And they would kind of compile all of the information that we provided separately and upload it into the right place and make sure that, okay, well, you provided this and that is part of A, but there's B, C, and D in order to qualify for the entire 20 points or whatever. So they were really good about navigating the entire action item, points A, B, C, D of, section 1.1. And we were really just kind of more thinking about what has been done and where we can find the information about what has been done or what we want to still do, and getting that to them to really be like the actual little, helper to actually get stuff in the system. And they were keeping us on track in terms of where we were from a point standpoint. Okay, I had submitted thus far, different items that would add up if you get everything approved to 160 points. And so you're, whatever, less than halfway there to qualify for the 400 points you need for silver. So that was extremely helpful. And to the extent that we can get another fellow this year, I think that what your question about actually uploading, that will be addressed by the fellow if we can get one.
Great. Thank you.
But we did a lot of, I think to Mike's point, it was a lot of I know that Hewitt has done something on, invasive species. Who knows somebody that's on the Hewitt Farm Committee that can provide information about what they're doing on invasive. I'm kind of making stuff up, but just sourcing internally people that we know who are doing work in the area within the town and trying to compile the information. Like I worked with Nita for, on some historic assets, and she compiled, kind of fine tuning what we needed and what she was able to provide based on her research, and kind of putting everything together in a package that was viable for what they were asking, the way that the question and the action item was phrased. So I think the other nice thing is that the fellow should be able, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fellow should be able to kind of see, because we applied for a lot of items that didn't get credit because maybe we were partially there. So those are kind of the low-hanging fruit. I think the first step in sort of reviewing where we stand vis-a-vis our silver 400-point level, certification, what we're trying to attain. They'll be able to point out, okay, well, you got the reason that you didn't get the full 20 points was because you're not quite there for, C, D, and E. And then we can kind of work on those low-hanging fruit as a first goal. And then we take a second pass of, let's look at everything that we didn't even apply for and see if anything, we can go for those items that haven't already been broached in some way. So it's sort of, I think that's the way that we've approached it in the past, of kind of looking through what we've already done and what is, what are those low-hanging fruit.
So if I were to go to the Sustainable Connecticut website, would the information for North Stonington's activities to date be there that we could review and look through?
So I can pull it up. Let me just, again, I had it open on my other screen. So let me just see if I can pull it up. But basically, I think I had noted that we were certified in 2020 with 220 points. So that got us the bronze level, but not the silver. But it says everything in the portal, what we, what they did fully approve and what we got points for. Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on 1 second. Does anybody, while I'm logging in, does anybody else want to talk about anything on the? I don't want to waste time.
Mhm.
It's more of a maintenance item, but is there anywhere in Zoom where you can add notes as we're going along, just so I can? I'm jotting notes, but
I could do it maybe in the chat function.
Is there a chat function? I was just looking for it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's not on the.
Yeah, you have to move the cursor around, it'll pop up on the bottom. It should.
We probably have chat disabled
Oh,
for the account, so I don't think we have it enabled.
okay.
Okay, so I'm in municipal. I'm gonna. Do you mind if I stop sharing the agenda and share the?
Go ahead.
Okay, can you see my screen? North Stonington certification application.
Yep.
So this is the fresh start, but then I was just in this earlier. Let me see. Details and history. So if you go to details and history in the kind of municipal dashboard for North Stonington, then you can, for example, see on certified October 2020, if I click here, it does indicate, oops, you know what, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this now. Do you see a PDF that I'm scrolling, or you still see the other screen?
I don't see the PDF. Yep.
The PDF.
See the PDF? Okay. So you can see which ones we got points for. We got 30 points for the equity toolkits. 10 points for promote local retail options, and all the supporting documentation that we submitted. We got 5 points for the CPACE program, 25 points for develop an open space plan. So it does indicate what we've gotten credit for thus far. And there was, from my recollection from last year, you could recertify, and we can confirm with Sustainable CT that it's going to work again this way, but you didn't have to do 400 points from scratch. So for example, for the develop an open space plan, we could still reapply for that towards the 400 total points. It's not like we have to do totally different ones that we've never touched before in order to qualify for 400. We would just need to basically recertify that, like, whatever we have done to get that 25 points is still in place. Like, we're still doing that. So just showing, it's usually there's different look back periods. So for example, if your look back period has expired based on the fact, like, let's say they give you a 1-year look back period, if you're applying for another year to just recertify, if it's a 1-year look back, you have to show that you did it all over again in 2020, basically, versus if it's a 10-year look back, if you've already, shown that within the past 10 years you did this, then it's, unless it was like 10 years ago, if it's 8 years ago, you'd still be able to carry it forward, if that makes sense. And Mike's nodding, so I'm feeling encouraged that I'm remembering correctly. He might want to jump in if I miss something. But so these we can automatically try to just kind of recertify everything that's been done, and we'll just need to go through to make up the gap basically between the 220 that we already got last year. So, the 180 points that we need to get silver. Does that answer your question, John? Is that helpful?
It does. It's answered it thoroughly. Thank you.
Sure. And I'm going to try to find, I think we can go through and find, they did give us comments, and I'll see if I can pull it out and send it to everybody. But we did get comments on specifically the ones that we didn't get full credit for. They did explain, well, we didn't give you credit for it because of X, Y, and Z. So usually those are the ones that we can go through and sort of say, well, what do we have that can sort of show that we should get credit for it this year?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on that? Okay. I'm going to go back to the agenda. And actually, instead of going back to the agenda, maybe I'll pull up, if you think that this is a good time to just kind of run through the general action overview worksheet. So you can see, this is a spreadsheet based version. It's just basically the categories within the platform, but it is breaking it up. And we worked off of this quite a bit in sort of our day-to-day collection of action items, because it's just easier to navigate than the portal sometimes, but kind of giving you a full snapshot of everything. But it goes into, to qualify, you need to complete at least one action item in each of the 11 categories. So you can't skip any one. You might not be able to answer all of them, obviously, but you can't skip a whole entire section. So you have to answer something in section number 2. So it's inclusive and equitable community impacts. This is where we get an equity coach. So I think hopefully that will be in the case again this year, but you are assigned somebody that will work with you to kind of talk about, okay, what are you doing in the town? How can we sort of, sometimes we design something specific, like for the walk, we did a, oh my gosh, what was it? A walk audit.
Yeah.
Of the town. So that was something that was done specifically. We planned it and scheduled it in in accordance with sustainable CT, while other things are just ongoing that we kind of work with the equity coach to tell the story, basically. So it's something ongoing that the town's already doing, but we're utilizing the equity coach to kind of enable us to tell the story in a way that, gets credit for the Optimize for Equity section. So we can plan something specific, or we can just go off of what we're already doing.
Mike, on equity, I'm not sure I understand what all it's covering. The proposed senior tax relief, is that the kind of thing that's under this? What kind of equity are we talking about?
So the whole thing about the sustainable CT program, which Alexis and I were often reminded of, really is a lot about the journey.
Yeah.
It's a lot about, and then, so yes, to answer your question, that could be a very good thing because, we have been hearing at meetings that there are people who are in need. And so there's been many ongoing discussions about that. So like just tonight at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, maybe you were there.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, where we decided we were going to increase the tax relief for seniors. And that's step one. And there's going to be more tax relief that we're going to try to implement. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a good example, but it's all about documenting how we got there.
Okay.
And that's the step that often is like, it's like, I always find myself, I've always found myself like realizing how much we've accomplished, but like, you're not like keeping track of it because you're just so busy working all the time. That's how I feel anyway. So we're always doing a lot of like backtracking to document how we got there. And so I'm hoping with this committee, we'll be able to be a little bit more proactive, and there'll certainly still be some of that. But that's a long-winded answer to say, I think that's potentially a good one.
And that was discussed in today's, has it been discussed in any previous Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yeah, it's been discussed in multiple meetings. It's been presented at the last meeting. The Board of Finance brought it up. We actually took it up a couple of years ago and it didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then there was more of an appetite, really pretty unanimous from the Board of Finance, which was surprising to take it up. So after a few meetings, we actually implemented that today. And then we're not done though. We're going to have some more tax relief that we're going to work on. So.
Mm-hmm.
And my recollection on this item too was, this is kind of to Mike's point, but it was both about what we're doing, but also about how we're allowing for the voice of a demographic in town that might not be as vocal as others to be heard and acknowledged. So for example, even if it's not so much about like, well, what's the demographic of the town and, what it's more about making sure that we're really including. So for something like this, like if this is a demographic that, it hasn't been able to advocate for certain things in the past, really showing that the town is giving a voice to that demographic and something that is of kind of primary concern to them. If that makes sense. It's a little hard to articulate, but it's more about the inclusion than it is necessarily strictly like, are we doing X, Y, and Z from an equity standpoint? It's very much about inclusion too.
And I think tax relief is a good topic because, Pat was there, so she heard the discussion. There's always there's always this, like the regular thinking is, okay, seniors, but it's not just seniors that are struggling. We're talking about, single parents or whatever. So we're actually branching out, and actually our assessor told us tonight, the program that deals with people that aren't age, like, he's like, I don't know, there's no one else in the state doing it. He's like, but there is a statute that allows for it. So we basically said, well, go look into this and come back to us because we want to do this. So it is about equity, for that.
Mm-hmm.
So then next section is thriving local economies. So that's, there's some stuff on brownfield, which I think has never applied to us, right, Mike? The brownfield stuff was not applicable. But a lot about sustainable purchasing and like local businesses. So I think I mean, gosh, just personally, I've noticed so much that's popped up within the last year that's really given us access to buying local. So I think that's a real area that we can showcase what we've done. But that's a whole category of sort of buy local and how we're promoting local businesses in town, sustainable workforce development, that kind of thing. And then there's the category of well stewarded land and natural resources. So that's it's a lot on plans and education. In some areas, like, there's always inevitably going to be things that we just don't apply to the town, but we try to find areas that we have something. It is by my going through all of this, are you all already familiar enough where I'm boring you by going through the different items because you've already familiarized yourself with this?
No, go on.
Helpful to go through. Okay. And I'll we can certainly delve into this in more detail in a subsequent meeting, but I just wanted to kind of quickly high level go through them. Open space plan is definitely one that we've done and gotten credit for before. Natural resource and wildlife inventory. From my recollection, we were kind of partially there on this. It was like a low hanging fruit where I don't think we got full credit for it, but I feel like that might be a nice one for this year to kind of go for. Drought and municipal water use. Last year's drought, definitely, it's a topic of heightened interest. Water conservation. So again, like more educational programs that we're kind of making the town citizens more aware of water conservation efforts and what we can do. Low impact development, manage woodlands and urban forests, invasive species. There was a lot on that, particularly from my recollection in the past with the local lakes, like Wyasip Lake and some of the other lakes, controlling the algae that was invasive, like a particular type of algae that was a water plant or something like that. So things like that. Green grounds and maintenance program that was, I think, more on municipal land, from my recollection. And then here's a whole section on pollinator pathways, Pat. So there's a whole 3.12. This is new. I think everything in green, I believe, is a new item. So it's new to it wasn't in last year's plan. So there's a whole section on pollinator pathways. And maybe, is this a good junction to ask you about your involvement with that and what's going on with pollinator pathways?
Well, haven't gotten real far. We did have, the garden club is supposed to be a community effort, not a garden club effort, but the garden club is spearheading it. And we did have a kickoff with information and such in front of the library June 5th. None of you were there. We didn't get a whole lot of interest. The main thing is we have a lot of information available. The main thing is we don't have a definite line on the map yet that should be able to be a specific line and include public space. Got three sort of ideas, but it hasn't been done yet. We have $100 startup money from the garden club. And my question is, how do grants work with sustainable? Like, for instance, I have $100 to work with, but I already have a printing bill and the lawn signs. To get people to sign up for the lawn signs, they're $10, which they would pay for, but I figured as soon as I got 8 or 10 requests, which I have, I would get the signs. Of course, that's $100. That's over the money I have. And then there's some other costs down the road if we keep going, and I haven't a clue as far as grants, any grants, and specifically Sustainable Connecticut. So that's where I have to go soon, but I don't know how it works.
Sure. No, I think that would be a great, and I'll let Mike jump in if I'm incorrect here, but I think that would be a great area to apply because there's no, it can be a specific organization within the town. It doesn't have to be the town itself that's sponsoring it or requesting the grant. So I would think that, you know, the Garden Club for this Pollinator Pathways initiative could apply. I've had contact with the person who runs it, and his last name is, I can't remember it, but his first name is Abe, and he's really helpful at guiding, you know, exactly like kind of curating the, okay, this is what you're looking to do. This is how we can craft it into an applicable grant. And the way that it works is that it's a match. So you have to launch a crowdsource campaign, crowdfunding, you know, through, I think they have a platform called IOBI, but you know, it's basically like any kind of crowdfunding platform where you have to get a certain number of minimum contributions. So they're basically looking for it not to be, you know, one person gives 5,000 and then that's the end of it. They're looking for a lot of smaller contributions. And as long as you meet that minimum, and it's not a hard minimum to meet, I want to say it was like 20 or something like that. It wasn't impossible. And whatever, let's say your goal is $10,000, and if you can raise 5,000 through the platform, the crowdfunding platform, they'll kick in the other part.
But it says on the pollinator, I think it's on the pollinator side, I don't know, but it can be a Pollinator Pathway Committee. It doesn't even have to be a 501c3.
That's correct. That's correct. It doesn't have to be a 501c3.
I mean, the Garden Club is, but it can be just the committee. It can be anything.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the thing that committee should be cognizant of as you think about what you want to do, because this is all new, and our first Sustainable Connecticut grant application was the procurement or helping Avalonia procure
Right.
Avalonia, the Putker Road parcel. I think we can only have one grant in process at a time, right, Alexis?
I will confirm that. I thought that we could have a couple things as long as they were from different.
Okay.
I'll confirm it with Abe.
So I don't know what that is. So that would be good to know, because there should be, as we get into this, and now that we have a committee, there should be probably like a process by which we select, nothing crazy, but because we want to make sure we're able to get the crowd support. We got great support for that project, which was awesome. And, 20 people isn't really that many, but to be able to raise, we can get a maximum of, I think a $15,000 match for any one project. So, it's just a matter of, okay, where are the possible needs or the cool things we'd like to get done in town, and just weighing all those out. But I mean, this sounds very worthy.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him and see how many we can have going at any one time, as long as they're spearheaded by different factions is a kind of negative connotation, but you know what I mean? Different groups within the town. He's really helpful and accessible. And I could even ask if you think that this would be helpful. I could even see if he might be available to join one of our committee meetings to just kind of generally, so that you're not, because you might have questions that I don't think of, and then it's a little bit of like, you might as well hear it straight from the horse's mouth. So maybe I could see if he's available to join our next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Are we allowed to have guests? We can have guests, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Public meeting, you can have, you
Sure,
will.
Okay. So another new item, dark skies. So these are new areas that, the nice thing about having new areas is it's something that may be an area that we're already working in that will be able to get the introduction of new points accessible to us versus the ones that we've kind of combed over year and said, oh, this is just not applicable to us. Next category, vibrant and creative culture ecosystems. So this whole section is nice in that, you know, again, this is what I kind of think of as not really what when I think about like sustainability, I think of more environmental stuff, and this is more, you know, the life of and culture of the town from an artistic or, you know, what we're doing sort of to develop our culture. So this is a nice whole section that's a little bit outside of the box of, you know, traditional sustainability. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity. Mike, I know you had shared with me something about the American Rescue Plan to fund arts and culture, that we had to dedicate a certain percent, like I mean 1% or something like that. So do you think that that has application here?
Well, yeah, it probably does. I mean, we don't have to do that, but we were asked to do that from the Cultural Coalition. So tonight, the selectmen were given some recommendations on how we may utilize that funding. And we're going to start those discussions at our next meeting, which will be 2 weeks from now or whatever. And that was one of the recommendations was, you know, to potentially work with the Cultural Coalition on kind of, you know, being able to reinvigorate our arts and culture in the area, you know, since COVID really kind of decimated that segment everywhere. You know, so that is something that we're going to be discussing. You know, I'm not really sure, you know, if it'll gain support or not, but it was one of the suggestions that was made tonight.
So if I understand correctly, it's not a separate pot of money that the town only gets for the purpose of arts and culture spending. This is what you get, and we're advising that you put a certain percentage into that kind of initiative.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it would be interesting for anyone who's interested to come to the next selectmen's meeting, because we'll probably discuss it in pretty good detail.
Okay.
But with the town was given, our allocation from the rescue package is like $1.5 million. It's a lot of money. And that, you know, we have to put that money to use in 5 areas that are determined by the Treasury. So it can be used only for certain things. You know, we're going to go over where we think the greatest need is in our town, and the best way to implement those funds. And then there'll be, I'm sure, some pretty good discussion about, you know, how that all shapes up. But yeah, it's not like we have to use it for this or have to use it for that. That's not how it is. It's just, there's only certain reasons we can use it, but there's a lot of leeway in where we will use it and what our community needs.
Okay, great. Just scrolling through, you know, arts and culture program for youth. So it's all kind of within that same, like what we're doing in the adolescent or demographic. Dynamic and resilient planning, permitting process, you know, a lot on agricultural friendly processes, assessing climate vulnerability. This was another one that I think we got partial. You know what? I think for my recollection, we did a bunch. Nita was great about assembling all this information for the historic resources, and that it didn't get counted, but I think we could resubmit it for this. So that's, you know, kind of developing maybe further our historic assets within the town. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, because I don't think we got full credit for that at all, and Nita did some great work on it. Solar permitting for solar installations. I will say as a caveat, and Mike, you can probably provide more color on this, but in some case, what I found is that a lot of this is a matter of, you know, less about what we as townspeople are doing and more, do you have this in your, you know, like municipal building code? And it would, you know what I mean? It would take like it's not just something that we as a group could get together and just we're going to go plant a bunch of pollinating plants, okay, we're going to get the townspeople to be all in on this. Some of it does get a little bit into what's built into, like municipal government plans and that kind of thing. So some of this is a little trickier for us to have influence over. Is what I mean, I guess, right? Is that a good way of putting it, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think with a committee now, that's the hope, is that there'll be more of a presence where we can make this top of mind, so we can make some lasting changes. But you're correct that in some of these cases, it has been probably more challenging.
But I guess to your point, so for example, like train planning staff on best practices in planning and zoning for solar PV. I think to your point, you had mentioned that now that we have, our dedicated group, like maybe, I sit in on a planning and zoning meeting once a quarter or something like that, because then we have the ability to kind of maybe at least influence them to a certain extent that, hey, have we thought of this, within the context of planning and zoning, for example. Oops. Long-term recovery, that was, sort of COVID appropriate. Let's see. Clean and diverse transportation systems and choices. So again, some of these are a little challenging because transportation is a lot on like public parking and zero emission vehicles and things that are a little trickier outside of the scope of a city. Public transit, for example, but we're able to kind of incorporate it into, like, the walk audit was an example, because, or the crosswalk, basically making the town, to the extent our town is walk accessible, making it, a little bit more so. So
speed humps.
Sorry?
Got that, Mike? Speed humps.
Yeah, they're coming. Yeah, that's another thing. We got a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're adding speed bumps?
Speed humps.
Speed
We're
humps.
trying.
What's the difference between a hump and a bump?
much. The humps are much less. They're less aggressive. They're more
less bumpy.
Less bumpy.
They're wider. They're wider and it's not as high.
Yes.
Okay. Speed humps. Okay. That's a good example. I think we could. That's a good example.
It is a lot of.
Well, we have on Billings Lake Road, Mike. Is that those humps?
No, not what we have on Billings. Those are bumps.
Okay.
Those are that's not what we're doing there.
People are going around them, you know that?
I know, I've heard. We're looking at it. We're trying to figure out a solution. The traffic commission brought it up.
Yeah. Bigger rocks, I think.
Bigger speed bumps, longer ones.
Anyway, sorry.
Nope.
Renewable and efficient energy infrastructure and operations, tracking energy use, particularly within municipal buildings, high energy performance for individual buildings, so just energy conservation, increased use of renewable energy in municipal buildings, municipal energy plan, lighting was a big topic, like street lights and that kind of thing. Community energy campaign, benchmarking energy and water use for multifamily housing, all that kind of stuff. Inclusive engagement, communication, education. So these were like hold a sustainability event. So this could be something I feel like, seems to make a lot of sense if we're, having a sustainability committee to have something that's kind of getting the word out within the general community about what's going on and what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. So I feel like these are very accessible for our committee, I would think. Effective community communications, for my recollection, it was a lot on how how sort of what's done on a government or municipal level within committees is communicated out more broadly to the population, kind of a little bit in line with that whole concept of like inclusion. You know, are people really understanding what's being done at the municipal level? Does that sound right, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. It's we've already put together our communication, you know, methods. We have documented that and we have that all in a spreadsheet, but certainly I think there's new ideas to come. And so I think it'd be good to brainstorm on that.
The whole collaboration with other municipalities, that is new for this year, I believe. And then the nice thing about, and this is to your point, John, the nice thing about Sustainable CT and is that you do have the opportunity to kind of consult with other municipalities to see what they're doing in this domain. So it is, you know, I think it's providing a forum for greater collaboration in a certain way, you know, on sustainable related items, especially like, you know, it's a big state with a lot of different towns. So maybe not our neighboring states per se, but maybe there's towns in other geographies of Connecticut that are doing really interesting things. So strategic materials management, save money and reduce trash. So yeah, a lot of on like trash and recycling and composting and that kind of thing. Optimal health and wellness opportunities, encourage healthy and sustainable food networks. That was a big item for last year, like community food action plan, access to sustainable healthy food, conduct health impact assessments, improve air quality, community growing spaces. It looks like it's a new item for this year. So that's kind of that's an exciting one. We have, Hewitt Farm has a community garden, doesn't it, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
So that might be a nice one to incorporate. And lastly, healthy, efficient, and diverse housing. So that was affordable housing. So they've changed this a little bit, but it looks like sustainable and affording housing options. And homeless prevention, I'm sorry. So that actually, the senior tax relief that you're mentioning, that could probably maybe have some congruence here. If there's, you know, preventing homelessness or having to relocate because of not being able to stay in a house. And then there's this whole just implement your own sustainability action. That's kind of like you make up, you know, not make up, but you have the ability to have some flexibility in terms of what we're doing that might not be within the bounds of one of these particular areas. That's pretty much it. Any questions on those?
I actually, you were nice enough to forward this document a couple months ago when we met for the first time. So I'll go back through it. I think there's some of the things in there are kind of interesting because when you look at the municipal buildings in town, you can almost, I know there's been some work done on solar arrays and things of that nature. They can be further enhanced with some storage systems to provide backup energy for the buildings themselves in times of power outage. I don't know what exists to back up many of the town facilities, but some of those things could probably be revisited and captured as initiatives. Kind of interesting.
It's a great idea.
And Alexis, you said there's a document somewhere that kind of lists what the town has done and what their current score is for bronze and what we've achieved toward silver. That's on one of these sites.
Yeah, I can send that around, but I think it's a PDF that I can export and send it, but it's basically how we got to the 220. So I'll send that around.
In my spare time, I might be able to take the PDF and combine it with the Excel sheet to be able to look at the categories, see what we've scored points in, and give everybody an idea of where we stand for each of the particular categories. I don't know if I can, I'll try.
Yeah, and I would say, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was something that the fellow was able to do as part of their, they kind of mapped where we were and what we still had missing. So maybe if I just have an update on when our fellow is going to be assigned, I certainly don't want to lose too much time, but I also am mindful of the fact that maybe they'll have more time to do something like that than you, and you have, if they can do it, then maybe it's a good job for them instead of taking your valuable time. But
honestly, I'm not looking for things to do. I'm just thinking along the lines of the deadline that we're looking at for application. And I thought if I can quickly do it to give everybody a reference point, it might be helpful.
I think it's a good idea if you can, John, because the fellow, as we ran into last year, 2 years ago, we had a fellow that was really awesome. And last year, honestly, she was not quite as awesome. And it really, it kind of, we struggled a little bit because we really relied on that person. Because, this is just something we're trying to do because, there's a lot of good reasons to do it, but we also have a lot of priorities. So it's tough to juggle. So, yeah, I mean, the more we can put ourselves in a position of success, because those fellows represent a number of towns too. So, I don't know exactly who we'll get or how they'll be or whatever.
It shouldn't take too long. I mean, there's a lot of rows in this, but taking what we've done so far and just kind of cutting and pasting it and creating a summary document should be relatively easy just for references. So if you can forward that, Alexis, I'll take a stab at that, and I'll send it back to everybody on the invite just so when I complete it, just so they've got it.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Great.
The other question is sort of in line with this. Was there anything, and maybe this is going to be further teased out in a subsequent meeting, but is there anything that you're sort of, any one of you is like, section, this topic and that topic really speak to me. I want to really champion it and kind of be almost like the sub chair for that particular area. And maybe this is something, digest the spreadsheet a little bit further before we make any decisions, but I just wanted to kind of put that out to the group.
I can tell you right off the bat, I mean, it's why I kind of joined. I like the idea of lowering the costs associated with energy utilization and managing energy efficiently for some of the town buildings. So it's something that's relatively easy for me to do. So I'd probably like to look at those areas a little bit more closely and see if there's something the town would be willing to let me do to be able to come in and do some audits on what they're utilizing the solar for, how they may be able to optimize utilization of it, possibly even save the town a little bit of money in putting some of these programs together, putting some of the initiatives together. So that's an area that I'm kind of interested in.
Great, thanks, John.
That section, I think it's 10, that kind of deals in some, I don't know. Can you scroll down to that? I think it was
Sorry.
like, I forget what the actual category was.
Optimal health and wellness
10.
opportunities.
Yeah, that's kind of the world I live in. So I'm come with a general interest in that sort of stuff, and interested in sort of a broader, I work in the individual health world, but I'm interested in the public health world. So I could probably kind of cross over and explore that a little more, just offhand.
And to Craig's point of being specific, I think the area I pointed to was section 7. That I had some-
7, renewable and efficient energy infrastructure and operations.
Mhm.
Great. I'll put that.
Probably have some interest in section 6 as well. Don't know. Again, I'd have to look at it a little bit and
Mhm.
see. 'Cause believe it or not, there's probably some opportunities to optimize some of the infrastructure around town to just create some points of interest for low impact transportation.
And the whole solar, let's see, that was in section 5, solar permitting. That's less, I think that's on more individual homeowners than, so that's probably not, you mean more on the municipal level, right? For your area of interest? Or would
Yeah, I
this
mean,
section
I
be?
wouldn't be opposed to taking a look at, the solar permitting, but it seems to me the town's done a relatively good job at that from what I can see on the sort of the outside looking in, but I'd be happy to take a look at that. Don't want to bite off too much, but yeah, I'd be happy to look at that too.
Okay.
Can you go back to section 3 and see what else is in
Sure.
there besides?
Sorry, I'm making everybody busy.
Yeah.
Well stewarded land and natural resources.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people that have been working very hard, specifically at Tri-Town, the piece on Miller Road with invasive removal and
Mhm.
techniques and applying them on all sites, but specifically they've been working very hard at Tri-Town and have accomplished a lot in the last year.
Is invasive species in this one? Yes,
Yeah.
section 3,
Mhm.
section 3.
Mhm.
Okay. Tri-Town invasive species. And would this be sort of an area of interest for you, Pat, this whole section?
Yeah, I suppose so. Mhm.
I mean, you don't have to commit to it. It's just,
No,
you
no,
know,
I
to kind of
know, but yes,
easier
just
to
get the stuff together and figure it out.
sort of what's that expression? Something and tackle, something, what's the first part of that expression?
Mhm.
I personally have basically done the equity toolkits in the past, so I would say I'm happy to kind of be just because I've written the toolkits in the past, I sort of have some familiarity with them. So I'm happy to kind of champion the equity side, driving local economies. I'm happy to sort of be the point person on that too. Banker, I guess it goes kind of hand in hand. And I also really like the arts and culture section as well. So those would be like ones that I take particular interest in, but obviously I'll do whatever, but those were the 3 that kind of stood out just based on prior years. Okay, anything else on that? And Mike, or I guess group, we don't have to vote on these, right? Because they're not like, we're not
No.
creating, okay. The other thing is that I had on the agenda was kind of, and maybe this is for Mike to weigh in on, but in the past, the initiative when we've been compiling this has really leaned quite heavily on Juliet for a lot of the information to submit on these areas.
Mhm.
Christine certainly to a large extent, and obviously Mike. But Mike, should we have sort of points of contact where through this process that you want us to kind of first go to these individuals, or do you prefer we go all through you in order to kind of get, when it's involving towns, the town's resources to be able to access this information? How would you like to?
Are you talking about like going to the town staff to access certain information? Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
No, I mean, you can certainly ask them. So I should share with you that Juliet is leaving the
Oh,
town.
Oh,
Yeah. So she's taking another position. So she's gonna be with us. But like kind of just Fridays for like her last day is the end of the month, and then she's here with us Fridays for a couple of months. So she's in essence not available.
mm,
Um, yeah. So so we'll be looking to figure that out going forward. But I mean, to talk to the assessor or to talk to, Cheryl in land use or whoever, I think that's fine, just to be organized in your approach. You don't need to go through me,
okay.
at all. I just, they, obviously everyone's busy. And so the more that we can do just on a volunteer basis for this program is really the most ideal situation.
Okay. So in terms of, are there, based on, again, being mindful of when we can do something ourselves, but if it's something that we think already, we know it exists, but we just need like access to documentation, are there certain people that we should kind of keep in mind to contact, like you said, the assessor, or, points of contact that you recommend that we sort of think of?
Sorry, I was muted. For the most part, I would probably either touch base with me or Christine, and we'll be
Okay.
able to know who to point you towards, and
Okay.
that way we can also kind of give them a heads up, that you're coming their way or whatever.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I believe that we covered everything. I'm going to stop share and put back the agenda. I believe we covered everything that was, whoa, what just happened? Sorry. Okay. Public comment slash, I don't think there's anybody else here. So anybody else want to add anything? Ask anything?
Good first meeting.
I'm sorry it ran over. Okay.
I'll just mention one thought for everyone. This is a great group. This is a really, really great first discussion. Thank you everybody for doing it. As you're getting into this, if you think of anyone else you think would be a good fit for the committee, we did make this so it could be a larger group if you want, if anyone else is interested. So feel free to, let Alexis know or me know, and we can get them the application if you think they'll be a good fit to join. We're more than welcome to have a few more people to help lighten the load too.
Great. And thanks, shout out to Mike for coming up with the concept of this committee and for, championing the sustainable CT program to begin with. So this all is thank you to Mike.
Good idea. Agreed.
So I think I say, is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All those in favor?
Second, okay. Aye.
Sorry.
Yeah, John
Aye.
seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those against? Okay, I think we're done. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
participation.
Thank you for doing all that you've done so far up to this point.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm really excited, everybody. I'm really, really excited to have a group of bringing fresh ideas, and we're going to turn this into something great. So I really appreciate it.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
All right. Bye.
Good night.